the AltDev Student Summit. We are pleased to present Travis Sanchez. Note that you may submit questions using the posted Google moderator link on the live page. We'll address these questions during the Q&A at the end. Feel free to join the discussion on Twitter using the AltDevConf hashtag. So without further interruption, I would like to turn it over to our presenter.
Hey, welcome everybody. I'm doing a presentation today, The Blue Screen of Death. Going over a bunch of stuff about testing, bug reporting, a bunch of stuff you can add to your game to make your life easier when you send it out, and wrapping up with some stuff about crashes, probably the most frustrating bugs that you're going to find. So you're playing your game on your own while you're developing, but it's important to get it out there in front of other people. You can send it to your friends, but a lot of professionals do other stuff. They open up open betas. They send out emails to random people out there interested in the game and have them give feedback. And professionals, fortunately for them, have one other little option: dedicated testing houses who provide testers. A bunch of you out there probably have the "I want to test video games" mentality. And you can join up at some of these testing houses to test every game published by Activision or every game published by EA. And these people are testing everything that your game has to offer. The functionality, the gameplay, if it's stable, crashing, has graphical glitches, anything that they think's wrong with it, including a whole bunch of stuff that's overlooked normally called the technical requirements. Stuff like the Apple App Store and XBLA and any professionally published console title will have some technical requirements you should probably look at the beginning, because they're going to be tested throughout to make sure that your game, has everything that fits within borders on the screen. Everything can be, paused for 8 hours while someone's away from their console. And when they're testing all of this stuff, all you're going to get back is a bunch of bug reports. And it's important to realize that the people giving you these bug reports have no idea what your game is. They're interested in playing it, but they have no idea what it is. So if you think they're going to be giving you any testing information at all, make sure you give them descriptive documentation of everything in the game with little pictures of, what you want each enemy called, so that they can tell you what it is they're seeing when they see a bug. Give them any in-game tools, any in-game cheats, anything that will help your life when they try to, give you information about what's wrong with your game. And people aren't, in general, very tech savvy compared to you as a programmer for your game. So it's important to automate as much of this information gathering as you can, and as much of the bug reporting as you can, and walk everyone through getting you all the information that you need, because they don't know what you want, and you're going to get really bad bug reports that don't tell you anything at all, when really you want something that tells you exactly what the problem is, exactly where the problem is, and how to get back there. And it's extremely useful if they can provide you with a bunch of attachments, be they screenshots, replay videos, save games, or, as I'll get to later, crash dumps to help you debug the problem. So get all your debug stuff in the game. Don't be scared of having cheats there. You don't want your players using to get past parts of the game. It's there for the testers usually. And so it's good to keep it in a lot of your early builds so that you can minimally show where in the game the person is, where they're looking, so that you can get back there and try and reproduce the bug. You can optionally include a whole bunch of stuff in your screenshots that just doesn't have to be visible normally, but is when you take a debug screenshot, like IDs floating over every enemy's head, numerical values instead of bars in the UI, because it's hard to tell from some of the normal gameplay display what is actually going on behind the scenes if you don't just show the numbers, just show the state values. So anything you can include on your screenshots and log files, do so. And let your testers know that it's there so that they can report it. And let them know that they have the cheats available to get back to a point in the game and reproduce the bug. Yeah. And so the most frustrating thing that you're going to encounter through all of this is your game crashed. And this is the one that, everyone always complains about. Very first thing. You send your game that's been working great on your machine to your buddy, and it just immediately doesn't work. And even if you could reproduce exactly why it didn't work on your machine, that doesn't tell you that you're going to be able to fix the bug. It doesn't tell you anything because straight from the repro steps, it's impossible to know if you just shifted the bug around in your code, if you can't reproduce it because there's a configuration difference between your machine and their machine. And so you need a little bit more information. And that little bit more information is the horribly cryptic blue screen of death. Back in the day, Windows would crash. It would show up with a nice blue screen with a whole bunch of useless numbers on it. And everyone was just, oh, my computer's broken. Nowadays, it's usually just a little pop-up dialog that says, your program's had an error. Would you like to send an error report? And if you dig down into that, it usually has something like what's listed here of unhandled exception somewhere in your test app, an access violation writing some location. And it still doesn't seem to tell you anything, but every one of those numbers has a value that you can learn. Stuff like null pointer exceptions, accessing some member on a null structure, using uninitialized memory, and it actually is even telling you the exact line of code where your bug happened. But who wants to wade through all those numbers? The easy way to go about it is making sure that you can get a crash dump, a mini dump, a core dump, whatever your system wants to call it, because you can drag and drop these files directly from their computer after they email it to you, straight into your debugger, and see exactly where your game crashed. The gotcha, and one of the big takeaways is when you start testing your game, make sure everything is in version control. All this information that I've tried to give out is little ideas of stuff that you can add to your game to make it easier on yourself when it goes for testing is useless if you're not version controlling your data, your code, your executable, and in the case of crash dumps, the actual debug symbols that get spit out when you compile your game. In this case, Visual Studio outputs these nice little PDB files that show up right next to your executable that need to be version controlled or you're never going to be able to debug anything. And so hopefully after this presentation, I've presented some sample code both on my website and what'll be on AltDev blog today of some sample code you can put into your game, just copy paste, and be able to see for yourself running through what it's like to drag and drop a crash dump onto your debugger and see where the crash is. I think I kind of rushed through this presentation, but there's a bunch of links here, a bunch more links that'll be posted with the presentation that you can go back to of tools available. MSDN has great walkthroughs of how you can do crash reporting using Windows libraries. Google BreakPad is an amazing open source tool that works on just about every platform to not only collect bug information, but immediately just email it off to you without the end user having to do anything. And even if you're working on Linux and you don't want to deal with Google BreakPad, GDB and most of the other compilers there also support a really similar core dump functionality to what I copy-pasted for the MSDN site. So I think that was actually pretty quick, but if there's any questions, I'll take them now. Feel free to visit my website. I just actually finished the post with the sample code for this. And that's about it. Heather, you there?
Oh, thank you so much, George. I didn't unmute myself. We have one question for you, actually. What platforms would you advise for better tracking, cataloging, and visualizing bugs?
So the open source, I believe it's called Track, T-R-A-C, is a really nice tool that you can set up. It's got a web page that kind of behaves like a wiki, and it has a bunch of bug tracking stuff in it. It's really easy to set up in-house, and there's also a few online sites that host that sort of thing for you. Um, Depending on where you're hosting your code, there's also Google Code has its own issue tracking. I believe GitHub just introduced its own version of issue tracking. So there's tons of options out there. I'll try and put together some of those links on the post I just made.
Thank you so much, George. One more quick question here. Would it be recommended that you provide a bug report template for external testers so that you get the best out of their efforts?
A bug report template is nice. I think what works a little bit better is something like what Blizzard has when you report stuff, is a whole bunch of drop downs that change your template, because not every bug is the same, and a lot of people get frustrated when you have a bunch of fields there that you want for crashes that make no sense when this is a gameplay bug. So if you're going to go with the template, make sure you have at least a couple of them there. One for the gameplay flow, one for crash flow, one for configuration problems, problems with the website, problems with the game, so that people don't feel like they're filling out redundant information over and over again in your template.
Unfortunately, that's all the time we have. Thank you so much, George, and thank you all for joining us. I'm sorry, Travis. Thank you so much, Travis, and thank you all for joining us. We have some wonderful sessions coming up. Feel free to click on the Watch Live page and keep an eye on that. And thank you for watching AltDev Student Summit.